So this week on the Sip Sow Podcast, I'm joined by Manoj Malde.
Hi, I'm Manoj Malde. I'm an award-winning garden designer, TV presenter, radio presenter, and now an accomplished author.
There's nothing that you can't do, is there?
Well,
Probably a few things.
maybe become a cook? I don't know. I do like cooking.
Oh,
I
great.
do.
So, you probably heard actually last year in the first season, I probably talked about you quite a lot of times because
did.
you were actually the inspiration for me doing this podcast in the first place. Because we had that conversation, we were at the laundry garden and we were having a wander around, and you were telling me about how you'd been preparing for the Chelsea garden, that you did. And you'd had all the paint samples, and Clive was saying, they were really annoying all over the place. But it was that conversation that made me think, I wish people could hear this, and this is why I want to do a podcast, so people can hear the conversations that they don't normally hear, and get to learn about the things that we don't normally talk about. So sorry for talking about you for all of last year, but I'm so glad that we're finally here and finally doing it.
Doing this, exactly. And to be honest, it's amazing that how people are fascinated by what actually happens behind the scenes. And there is a lot of work. When I talk about a lot of work, you're talking about a full year's dedication, literally just concentrating on this one garden to get every bit of detail right. And that, in my garden, that also included the colours, of course, because, I had to try various different tester pots, but also to look at how those tester pots were changing, or the colours were changing through the season.
Yeah.
I started in January. I did all the samples on a board, and every single day I was looking at these colours right up till April. And it was really interesting because the orange that I thought that I was actually going to use in the garden started turning dirtier and dirtier.
Really?
It was actually turning almost like a shade of brown. It had that sort of dirty brown tone to it. And I thought, oh, that's not very good.
It's not what you were going for.
And then the one that I thought I wasn't going to use
Was the one. Oh, wow.
and worked really well. So I think it's really important that when you design a garden, it's all about all of those little details that actually bring that garden together. Yes, there are other important elements to the garden, and you've got to do a lot of testing, be it that you might be using a new material and you've got to check how that's going to react with the weather outside. You might be doing some metal work, and is that going to be okay? I had these enormous steps, and we had to create metal framework for them to go into the garden. And there was one particular area which was cantilevered, and the corner of that, when I went to the metalworks, I was actually standing on the corner, jumping up and down to make sure that it wasn't going to snap off all of a sudden. So, we were trying to make sure that all the bracing underneath was working. Because the last thing I want is, 12 RHS judges walk onto my garden and one of them decides to step onto the corner and have a little bounce on the corner, and suddenly the corner breaks off and they end up in the pool of water underneath. So you've got to test all of these things out, and you've got to do that beforehand, not kind of start worrying about it at the show, because by that time it's too late to do anything about it. So there is a lot of work that goes into creating a garden for Chelsea, and the amount of meetings that I had
yeah.
with contractors, suppliers, telephone calls, all of that. So I mean, it's really exciting to do.
Yeah.
And for me, because it was my first garden at the Chelsea Flower Show, it was really interesting because in a way I was slightly finding my way as well. Of course, I'd worked on other designers' gardens, but never my own. So I wanted to make sure that I was really getting this right.
Yeah.
And of course, I was seeking guidance from the rest of the people that I was working with as well. Tequin was great. He was building my garden, and we had lots and lots of meetings. And it was great that I was working with somebody who was on my wavelength as well, and we were kind of singing from the same hymn sheet. And he would sit down and actually explain the technicalities of the build to me. And there were certain times where I kind of didn't get what he was saying, and I would just go, right, okay, sorry for being stupid, but I don't understand that. Can you explain it again? And he was really patient and explained it to me, and then I'd get it, you know. So, and you've got to, as a designer, you've got to ask those questions because it's your garden, it's your baby, and you need to know whether it's going to work or not, because it's your vision that the rest of the team are going to help you to bring alive. So it was really, really important that I understood every little detail of that garden.
Absolutely. I feel like we've just gone in now and started the conversation. But for anyone who's listening at this point thinking, who is this guy? Introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers who are thinking, who is this guy and what is... How do you describe yourself now?
I describe myself as an award-winning designer. So I'm Manoj Malde. I'm an award-winning designer. I present on TV and I do radio as well. And I've recently become an accomplished author. So I've just launched my first book called Your Outdoor Room. And it's strange how all of those things have happened, I guess, in a very short frame of time. I've not really gone looking for them.
No, they've been come to you.
Yeah, and that's what's so
Which is
lovely
nice.
about it.
Yeah.
It's been a gradual progression, and they've come to me. And sometimes I think that things happen for a reason and at the right time. And I think that's exactly what's happened with my career. You know, I was passionate about designing gardens, and hopefully that passion has come through and other people have recognized that. And so, you know, eventually the career has progressed into doing TV, then presenting on radio, and then finally writing a book. And quite honestly, I never ever in my wildest dreams thought that I would actually end up writing a book. It was never in my head. I never said, actually, one day I'm going to write a book, but it's happened.
Well, it was meant to be then.
Yeah, absolutely.
But wind back before that, because, you know, we were chatting in the car about the fact that you used to be in fashion, and the start of the book, in fact, you talk about that.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that and the history, and then how did you end up making the transition into gardening?
So yeah, I was in the fashion industry for 18 years, and I, like most designers, I started at the bottom end and slowly worked my way up. I then became senior designer, design head, and eventually climbed all the way to the top and became creative director. I even started a women's wear business for a company. They were a menswear company, and they wanted to venture into women's wear. And I was brought in to design the range, but I was also getting involved in things like getting the fabrics dyed, doing the design work, doing the fits, and then eventually selling to the buyers, selling the actual product and working with the factories. And within 4 years, I had turned that business into a £10 million turnover
Wow.
business. And I loved it. I loved
Yeah.
the challenges of it. I loved working with the buyers. I loved working with the merchandisers. It was amazing. Topshop, actually, when Topshop existed, was one of my biggest customers, and I had
wow.
a lot of number one bestsellers with them, and I loved it. But then what I did was I eventually, when I left the fashion industry, I took all of those experiences with me. And people often say to me, but how did you go from fashion into designing
Yeah.
gardens? Because they're like chalk and cheese. Actually, they're
No.
not.
Yeah.
Because I'm still working with colour, with dimension, with form, with texture, and I still design in the same way. So, I will do my research, I will create mood boards, I will create colour palettes, I will do the editing, so all of that comes into play, which it did in fashion.
Yeah.
And so, okay, my materials have changed,
Yeah.
but actually the method by which I design has not. I always explain to people that, in fashion design, we had to do technical drawings because as a designer, you need to be able to explain to the pattern cutters how you want the garments shaped. You need to explain the details to them. And then you also have to do the same thing with the seamstresses as well, so that they are then bringing your vision alive. Well, we have to do the same
the
thing
same
with the
with
landscapers
landscapers.
as well.
Yeah.
So we have to do the technical drawings. And that's exactly what I'm doing, So I'm designing a garden, but then I have to create those technical drawings for the landscapers and, of course, the soft landscaping team to understand how I want that garden to eventually look.
Yeah.
So it's transferable skills. It really is.
And you've heard of Genus, haven't you?
I have.
Well, I know you have because we were chatting in the car.
And I've just
earlier
bought a
about
pair
them.
of the trousers for my husband.
Yeah, you bought them for Clive,
Yeah.
haven't you? Because they're so practical in
Yeah.
terms of, their durability. My favourite bit is the knee pads.
Yes.
The built-in knee pads. But
Yeah.
what's Clive enjoying in them so far? Is he loving
I think
them?
the fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also that back pocket where you can put your phone.
Yeah.
Because the amount of times that he has dropped his phone,
Oh,
I'm
really?
surprised it still works, quite frankly. So he's now got a safe place to put his phone, which is
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yes, and you never lose any tools because
No.
you've got the stab-proof pockets.
Exactly.
And you literally, it's the best because I leave tools everywhere, and you find like
Yeah.
secateurs in amongst
And I
the
tell you, the
shrubs.
other thing that's really good is how when you bend down and your trousers then slip down,
Yeah.
and you constantly having to hitch them up.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the Genus ones don't do that.
No, and they've got like a higher waisted back.
Exactly.
Because they
Yeah.
know that we're going to be bending down
That's
all
it.
the time.
Yeah. You don't want builders' bums showing all the time, do you?
No,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
so they're brilliant. Really
Yeah,
good.
they really are. And I think if you're a long-term gardener, the thing I always face into is they're not the cheapest, but
No,
the
but
cost of them is so, if you're going to wear them like Clive will be,
Yeah.
most days when he's out on garden jobs,
Yeah.
then they are so, people tell us that they've lasted for 4 or 5 years.
Oh,
and,
definitely.
yeah.
The value is definitely there because actually, you'll get a pair of cheapo trousers and within a season they're gone.
Yeah.
Whereas the Genus ones aren't going to be doing that.
No,
You'll
they'll
be
last for
wearing-
such a long time.
Exactly. No, great design, great fit, great value.
Yeah. You just need to add a bit more colour to them.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
You
Oh my
think?
God, I would love to add that fashion element to that range. Yes, why
Yeah.
can't gardeners be colourful and fashionable?
Yeah, I can
think we
imagine a
can.
collaboration on the go there.
Oh, I'd love to do
I
that.
think that would
yeah.
be amazing.
Especially after my fashion background, I would.
It would be the
love-
perfect combination now
It
to do
would.
garden wear.
Exactly.
Right, watch this space.
Right.
I have to.
I'm up.
So you started doing it then, and obviously loving it, and then that other stuff just happened. The TV work, the radio, and all of that stuff. Did that just happen over time?
It happened over time, and what happened was I I'd obviously done my first garden at Chelsea, and that had been really well received. It was I guess it was a very photogenic garden, if I can call it that,
Yeah.
because of the colours. And I guess it wasn't your normal Chelsea style garden. I don't think many gardens at Chelsea have been created with agaves and succulents
Yeah.
and aloes and things like that. So it was very different for Chelsea. And I think that's what people picked up on. And then I had a phone call from a producer, BBC producer, and they said, we know of your work. You don't know us, but we know of your work, and we're creating this program, and we'd like you to be part of this program. And initially, I was kind of cautious because I just thought, yeah, I wonder what they want.
Yeah.
and I kind of said, look, is this going to be kind of paid work? Because if it's not paid work, then I'm kind of not interested in doing it, because
Busy
I have
enough
to.
already.
Well, because I needed to earn a living as well,
exactly.
and doing these things, it takes time.
A lot of time.
Yeah. So they said, no, we're going to pay you to be on the program and all of this. So, and then the other thing that I wanted to find out was, what did the program actually entail in terms of how was it going to present the industry to the audience?
Yes.
Because what I didn't want was to be involved in a program where, gardens were just kind of being put together bit slapdash.
Yeah.
And because it puts the industry in an awful light. And I really wanted people to understand about how designers work, the budgets, the landscapers, and how these gardens come together. And also how designers work with their clients as well, and what that takes. So they explained everything to me, and by this time they'd already done a home show, and so I watched that and I thought, actually, do you know what? I really like the idea of this. So I agreed. I said, yeah, I'd like to be involved, and they came and did a screen test of me.
How was that?
It was really good. I really enjoyed it. We actually did it in my brother's garden. They came over and we did it in my brother's garden. He has a lovely garden. And one of them was asking me questions, the other one was filming, and after the screen test was over, at the end they both said, yeah, we really want you to...
There's no going away and deliberating.
And that was it. And after that, contracts were signed, and I was part of the program. So, and I loved it. I absolutely loved every minute of it. I've not really worked in front of the cameras that much, but when I did that program and I was going out on location and working with the crew and all of that, you work almost like a little family unit.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. And I remember my first location that I went to, and the guy who was directing that particular bit of filming, we did the first bit, got it in the can. And he said, how did you just do that? And I kind of went, sorry, what do you mean, how did I just do that? And he said, well, we've just managed to get you in one take in the can. And for somebody who's not really worked in front of the cameras, that doesn't normally happen. It would be like 5, 6, 7 takes before we've got what we wanted, and we've just done that in one. I said, well, you asked me a question like a client would ask me a question, and I've responded.
Yeah.
And I'm not really worried about where the cameramen are, because they know what they're doing. Let them do what they want. my focus is on answering the question
trick,
you've
I think,
asked.
isn't it? It's
Yeah.
just, you do what you do and know that the cameraman will be wherever they need to be.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. That's not for me to worry about.
No.
You know, I'm responding to the question, and this is what I do with clients, and that's exactly what I do on camera. And many people have remarked when they've seen me in real life, and they've said, "My God, you're actually exactly what you're like on screen."
Yeah.
And it's like,
No, you're
well, why
right with that
would I
one,
be any
because
different?
actually, but you are, what you see is what you get,
Yeah.
and you are very much who you are on screen, off screen,
Yeah.
in person, and I think that is more rare now, I guess, isn't it? That all of us probably put on a little bit of a front
Yeah.
when we go on camera, but you are just who you are, aren't you? Really?
I feel comfortable in my skin,
Yeah.
and to be honest, I can't really be anyone else.
No.
You know? I don't know how to do that, so I just do what I have to do, and if it's right, great, and if it's not, then we do something else.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so I can't be somebody that I'm not. So that's what I present, and if I'm right for what they need, then that's great, you know.
Was there ever a time when you didn't feel comfortable in your skin? And has it taken you a while to get to that place? Because often I speak to a lot of people, about their social media or about their business or whatever it might be. And people struggle to get to that point. And I've been on that journey over years, and now I would say that I'm comfortable. But have you, has it been a journey for you?
It has, and I think that journey kind of began a long time back when I was at school, because I was at school growing up as a teenager, knowing that I was very different from the other boys. I wasn't interested in cars and playing football and all of that.
Football.
Yeah, and and I was kind of slowly coming to terms with the fact that I was gay, and obviously it wasn't kind of very accepted at the time. It is much more so now, but certainly when I was growing up, it wasn't. And obviously I suffered the bullying and the homophobia through the years and all of that, and that, I wouldn't say that I felt uncomfortable in my skin, but it was the outside effects that made me feel uncomfortable. The people that actually bullied me, the people that actually made my life uncomfortable as I was growing up. And I guess that's what I found difficult, because ultimately I can't change who I am, and also I guess in a way going through fashion, which was fine, and all of that's very acceptable in fashion. Then I obviously moved across to horticulture. Now there is a difference there between the two industries, that you do have a lot of people from ethnic backgrounds in the fashion industry who are amazing, really talented, doing some great work. The horticultural industry doesn't really have that, even now, it doesn't have that. And so I guess in a way, my battle there was kind of to be accepted, and also bearing in mind that the way I dress, the way I present myself is not your normal person who's part of the horticultural industry, right? So I know I probably will cause offence to some people by saying this, but I'm not the sort of person who goes around wearing tweed jackets and hunter boots or barber I just don't do things like that, because it's not me. And so I guess I'm not really seen as the person who is the right fit in the industry. But I think in a way, I've never seen that as a negative thing.
I think it's a positive.
I think it's a positive thing, and in fact now I actually say that thank you to those bullies at school, because actually you made me the person that I am.
Yes.
You made me the stronger person that I've become.
And you are now so comfortable in your skin because of all of that.
Absolutely. And it doesn't
Exactly.
bother me. Look, we're all different at the end of the day, you know. We all have our plus points and our negative points. And we've all got to learn to be able to live with each other and support with each other. And actually, we may not agree with each other's points, but we've got to learn to understand the other person and why they feel like that and why they believe in the things that they do. I may not necessarily agree with them, but that doesn't mean to say that I can turn around and say they're wrong and I'm right.
Yeah.
So I think that we all need to be a little bit more accepting of other people.
I love nothing more than a good debate or a good, a disagreement almost, because that just means we've got good opinions, and they're not the same opinions, but they're different, and
don't you find that
different
more
perspectives,
positive things come out of those conversations that you have? Because I certainly believe that actually it is by having those debates that leads to better things,
better outcomes.
Yeah, exactly.
You might compromise, or you might go, actually, no, you are actually right. You know, but you just both sides take a moment to think about that, and think about all sides and different perspectives.
Exactly, and also I think the thing is sometimes what you can do if you approach the argument in a diplomatic way, you may even get to the point where you win that other person over and they suddenly start thinking the way you do. You know? So it's all win-win.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. But I think, like you say, better to stand out and be yourself than to blend in 100%. I think that is the motto.
Yeah,
absolutely. That you should go by and just be yourself. So, actually, no. Take a step back. Your garden at home. What's it like?
It's a mess. It's a mess. I tell you why it's a mess. Because we bought this house 6 years ago, and as you buy a house, you think, oh yes, this is nice, this is comfortable, I can live here. It's all livable. I don't have to do much. And how wrong was I? Oh my God, there's so much that we have to do in the house. Sadly, the previous owners weren't that great with what they've done in the house. So anyway, every wage that I earn is going on the house.
Not on the
but
garden.
We are, having said that, I do have a design together for the garden, and we're slowly trying to implement that into the garden as well. It's not necessarily going to be our forever home.
Yeah.
We know that. Clive and I know that. So we've decided that we want to make it look nice, and we want to make it practical and usable and all of that. But we don't necessarily want to spend like loads and loads of money on it at the moment, because we're not going to be there to enjoy it. So we'd like to, and the home that we live in, it's a family home. So whoever then buys that home from us, we want to leave it in a way that they'll be able to enjoy it. But then if they want to add their own stamp on it, they can do.
Yeah, that's nice.
Because we haven't got an actual seating area where we might be able to lounge or dine outside or anything like that. So that's something that I really want to put in. Yeah. I want to put in more trees in the garden as well, to create a little bit of privacy, but also just to enjoy the trees, actually. So yeah, there's loads of things that I really, really want to do in the garden, but it's going to be kind of like a step at a time. Yeah. Because I need to get the house done as well. Yeah. And we've got a puppy at the moment, so it's like trying to make sure that he doesn't destroy the borders. Yeah.
So my original question that I started before I went down that rabbit hole was, are you sowing any seeds this year?
I am.
What are you sowing?
So I am sowing Ami Majors. I've got sweet peas at the moment. I've got chilies. I've got cosmos.
Oh, I love a cosmos.
Yeah, I love cosmos.
I grow way too many every year, but you can never have too
You
many.
can never have it.
No.
Exactly. And if you've got too many, give them away. Why
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
You know. And then I'm growing some veg as well.
Oh, right.
So tomatoes. I'm doing strawberries as well.
Oh,
And what else am I growing? Oh, I'm growing some kale,
Oh, nice.
peas.
Oh, I love
peas.
peas. Yeah.
Peas are great. They're
Yeah.
so easy to grow.
Yeah.
And they're really high in protein.
And you can just wander around the garden and pop them and eat them as you go.
Absolutely.
They never make it inside.
No, honestly. And actually, do you know what? I remember last year, was it last year or a year before, I grew peas and I went and picked them and I made a fresh pea curry.
Oh,
God, that was
that
delicious.
sounds amazing.
It tasted so good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to grow peas this year.
Oh, nice.
So-
Well, the podcast is sponsored by cauliflowers.co.uk, and Nick is a fantastic small family-run business, really family-run. They all get involved,
Uh-huh.
and you can buy some of the most amazing seeds, but at amazing value. One of Nick's core values, because I work with her as well,
Uh-huh.
is value and making growing stuff accessible to everybody. So it's a fantastic website. You can go on and just there are so many great seeds, and I'm sure Nick will send you some.
I will.
I'm promising that for her now. She'll be like, "You said what?"
I will certainly be checking that out because
So, yeah.
I love growing things from seeds, so definitely. And actually, do you know what? It's such a great way. If say you're on a bit of a budget, grow loads of annuals because look at the colour.
And you can
that
play
they-
around with it every year. If you've
yeah.
got a bit of a blank canvas, you can really make the colours pop and change your mind every year. Try a different
Absolutely.
theme. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, if you want colour in your flat, get some annuals, get some seeds, get them growing, and yeah, it's a great way. And I tell you the other thing they do, they make great fillers. So through the season, if you suddenly see a little gap
You
in your
get gaps.
garden, you can fill them in with annuals. Brilliant way of doing it.
Yeah. So all that stuff has happened, you know, the TV and the radio, and now a book coming out, which I really wanted to talk about the book because it actually leads quite nicely from that fashion journey. And you talk about that at the start of the book and the
Yeah.
fact that, you know, some of this stuff translate, like colours and, you know, like you say, forms and structure and all of that sort of thing.
You know, when I was in the fashion industry, I would be looking at the season's colours and it goes down to the shades and tones of that as well. And then, I've worked with print a lot. So for me, when I'm creating, say, a planting design, it's a little bit like creating a print,
Yeah.
but you're doing it in the garden, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of look at doing planting schemes in the same way. Now, that might sound a little bit peculiar for people who may not have been involved in fashion, but for me, those are my experiences that I'm drawing on, and I'm bringing them over into the horticultural industry. But what I've also found is that as I mature and I get older, I'm actually connecting more and more with my heritage as well. I want to know more about my heritage, and I'm drawing inspiration from there. And in fact, actually, when I did that first garden at Chelsea, I remember somebody asked me, what draws you to the colours that you use
Yes.
in your designs? And at the time, I found that a really difficult question to answer. I didn't know
You
the
almost
answer
didn't
to it.
know why you were
Yeah,
drawn to them. Okay.
Absolutely. And then the light bulb moment happened when one day I went upstairs to my mum's room, opened her wardrobe, and there were all of her beautiful saris hanging there
In all those colours.
in all those colours. And the rich embroideries and prints and all of that. And I just suddenly thought, of course, I've always been surrounded by this, even
Yeah.
as a child. And actually, it makes perfect sense why I'm drawn to this, because that's what I've known as a child. And subconsciously, I think what's happening is that is now beginning to come out in my work. and it's just a natural process. I don't even have to think about it. You know, I just do it, and that is my background, my heritage, the richness and wealth of my Indian heritage and my African heritage, that is all slowly beginning to come out in what I do. And it may not be very obvious all the time, but that's where it's being drawn from.
Yeah.
And I love it. You know, and I guess in a way, that's what my handwriting has become, because I remember when I was at design school, learning how to design gardens, and one of the things that we were told is that it takes years for designers to create a handwriting that is their own.
Right, okay.
And for me, I guess that's kind of almost happened as a bit of a natural process as well. Through the garden that I did at Chelsea in 2017. And so now people recognise my work because of the colours that I use and the detail that I use in my gardens. And so in a way, it's, I guess, a positive thing for me that, you know, I've actually been able to create a handwriting of my own that people recognise.
Yeah, exactly. So, when the publishers came to you and said, "Do you fancy doing a book, Manoj?"
I giggled.
Did you?
Yeah, I remember the editor rang me up, and I actually giggled on the phone because I was like, and I said to her, I said, "You do realise I've never written a book before?" And she said, "Yes, I know, but I've seen you on TV and I've seen the way you present, and you're actually really clear, but in a very simple way. You've got this art of making people understand what you're talking about. And if you can put that down on paper..."
That's the combination, yeah.
Exactly. Then you will be able to write a book. And she said, "I've also gone onto your website and I've read your blogs. And if you can write those blogs, you can write a book." So I thought, okay. And I said, can we get together and have a meeting, and then you can tell me what you require of me. I get more of an understanding of, you know, what it is to write a book, what's my remit. So we did that. And actually, in the back of my mind, I was also thinking, God, do you know what? I'm such a lucky bugger, because how many people get the chance to do things like this, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And when I really believe that actually, when you get those opportunities, grab them with both hands and run. Really run.
100%.
Yeah? Do it. Look, ultimately, if it doesn't work, at least you know you've given it your best shot, right?
Exactly.
So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to do this. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I'll write the book. The funny moment was when she said, "Oh, and it's about 30,000 words," and
Never mind.
And I gulped and I went, "What?" The thought of writing 30,000 words, it was a bit frightening. But
and did you know what you were going to write it on?
Yeah. So the idea was actually to write a book to help people to design their own garden, their own outdoor space. But it was to go all the way from the beginning, where they needed to firstly ask themselves the questions of how they want to use that space.
Yes.
Then to look at how to do a survey and a site analysis, and then moving on to how to create the plans for the design. And then, of course, how to select materials, how to select colours, how to select plants, you know, all of that. So I've literally taken the reader right from the very beginning, exactly as a designer would work, all the way through to actually implementing that garden, planting the planting scheme, but also to think about things like sustainability, biodiversity, upcycling, recycling, budgeting, all of that. And look, gardens take a lot of money to create, right? They're not cheap.
No.
But if you think it through, not everything has to happen immediately.
Yeah.
I think we live in a society where everything, we all expect everything to give us immediate satisfaction, right? And actually, gardens don't work like that. The
No.
pleasure of creating a garden is to gradually watch it evolve.
Well, that's why us gardeners are so addicted to this, isn't it? Because we get to
Exactly.
grow it ourselves and see it nurture and grow. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the
It's
garden,
the long game.
Exactly. And the garden just gets better and better as it matures. And that's the joy of creating a garden. Not that instant, immediate satisfaction, you know, because it's just done, and then what have you got to do, you know? So this is what this book's about, and it shows people that not everything needs to happen together. You know, get your structure in place, get your trees in place, get your shrubs in place, and then gradually the perennials can come in, the ornamental grasses can come in, the ferns can come in, and that can happen through the years as the garden evolves. And also, you don't have to gut your garden out completely and start from square one,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes it's good to have a look at what you've got in the garden. Actually, is there anything that you can keep? You know, often I get clients who say, oh, you know, I don't like that tree, chop it down. Actually, hang on a minute.
How can you work with that and incorporate it?
Exactly. You know, because some of these trees have been growing for years, and it's quite difficult to actually get instant maturity in a garden unless you go out and buy a big tree.
Yeah.
Right? And that costs an arm and a leg. So actually, why not work with what you've got? And actually, you've already saved money because you've got a mature tree in your garden. Maybe let's think about shaping it, opening it up, maybe lifting the canopy, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
And then let's see how it works in with the design. Let's not be too hasty.
What
you
I
know?
have to say that I loved about the book, I mean, obviously it's just such good advice the whole way through, but was the questions that you make the reader ask.
Yeah.
You're not just telling people how to design a garden, you're making them ask the questions which lead them to design the garden and have the ideas. I mean, I only read the first few pages and I was having to get a post-it note because I was thinking I need to write some of these ideas down, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm just growing in a tiny little space.
Yeah.
But just the ideas with the colour and things that you should be thinking about. And your mind just starts going.
Yeah.
And you're getting people to think about all of that stuff for themselves. And I
that's-
think that was the powerful thing about the book for me.
Yeah, I think, you know, the first thing I always say that before you even start inking a design on paper, sit down and really think things through.
Yeah.
And always with a garden, work it as a whole space, because one of the fundamental mistakes that a lot of homeowners make is that they work different areas of their garden in isolation, right? So when you do that and you're not actually following a plan, what you find is when you've finished, nothing actually really sits together
Gels
that well.
together.
Yeah,
Mm.
nothing sits in cohesion. And what you really want to do is make sure that you have a total plan, and then you can work at it in phases.
Yeah.
And that way, the end result will be really good, because actually you've followed a plan. It's like everything. You create a plan and then follow that plan through.
Yes.
Right? Do the same thing with a garden.
Yes, exactly. So the book is out now
Yes.
to buy. Where can people buy it?
So it's available on Amazon, but it's also available in really good bookstores. So Waterstones, Dawn's, so many of the good bookstores have actually got the book, and you can go into the shops and buy it as well. And you can purchase it online. That's all right. Oh. The things we do for the love of what we like to.
I know. For anyone listening, you can probably hear the wind already, but the people watching will be able to see us basically getting pelted with hailstones. It is raining on us, and it is very windy. But it gives us a good opportunity to talk about where we are. So when I said to Manoj we're going to record the podcast, you straight away said you wanted to come here. So tell everyone where we are and why you wanted to come here.
We're actually at the wonderful Beth Chatto Gardens, and actually look at the amount of colour in the garden already. I love this garden, especially the gravel garden, because for me it's actually very Mediterranean, drought tolerant plants, and I love working with drought tolerant plants. I love working with Mediterranean plants as well. So I love coming here, and they have got the most amazing nursery. They do the sort of normal usual plants, but actually what I love about that nursery is that they have a lot of unusual plants as well, and I always pick up some really lovely new plants that I've never come across anywhere else. So I love coming here, and it's an amazing garden to visit. I would advise anyone who hasn't been to come over to Beth Chatto Gardens, come and look at the gravel gardens, come and venture around the lake that they've got here, and it is a lake because look at that water. It's quite a expanse of water. But the other area to look at here is the woodland garden as well. That's pretty special. So certainly take a little walk down there as well.
Hopefully we'll get a chance to have a little look before we
absolutely.
go, if
Sneaky
the weather
peeks.
holds.
Exactly. Exactly. But it's such a beautiful garden, and the team do an incredible job here. I love it. As I say, it's well worth a visit, and for me, it's one of the gardens that I would come back to time and time again.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. It's the first time I've ever been, so I am excited to be able to hopefully get a little bit of a walk around and have a look. I mean, already we've walked a few meters, and we've stopped at every corner to look at the most amazing plants.
Yeah.
And even in the nursery, I've already picked ones that I want to take home.
Exactly.
So we've
already had a
minutes.
sneaky peek
Yeah.
in the nursery, haven't we? We've already said, right, I want a few of those, and I want a few of those.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you can't help it. You come in here, and it's like kids in a sweetie shop.
Yeah,
isn't it?
It is for all of us
That's how I feel
gardening
about it.
people.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
So what's next then for you after everything? What have you got in the pipeline? What are you planning?
So I've got a number of gardens that I'm signing for various clients at the moment. I've got a couple of fee proposals to get together. I'm really excited about judging at Chelsea again this year as well. So because I created a garden last year, so I'm back to judging this year, which is fantastic. I'm going to be continuing with a bit of training for judging. So I'm going to learn how to give feedback. So I'm excited about that because I think that's an important part of being an RHS judge.
Yeah.
And I've also started doing online consultations. So I'm now dedicating my Fridays for people who just need a little bit of help. They want to create their own garden, and it kind of, I guess in a way, it kind of links up with the book as well, that they want to create their own garden, but they don't know exactly where to start.
We just want a bit of guidance along the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what they can do is they can book an hour's consultation with me. They can go onto my website and book that in. And what they do is they send me all the information. So there's a number of questions there that they answer. They send me the measurements of their garden. And they also send me things that inspire them, their likes, their dislikes. I take all of that information and then I start working ideas for them. And then we'll have the online consultation and I will discuss the ideas with them. I may even do a sketch for them. And then they can take all of those ideas and begin their journey on their garden.
That sounds brilliant. And are you doing many shows as well this year? Are you going to many?
So definitely Chelsea, and in fact, funny enough, I just opened the Cornwall Garden Society Spring Show, which was fantastic. I love that actually because it's so very different from doing Chelsea and doing Hampton Court and Tatton. It's
they have a different vibe, the smaller ones, I think.
It did. It had a lovely sort of cozy family vibe, much more accessible. I guess, some people may feel a little bit uncomfortable kind of going to the likes of Chelsea and Hampton. Not that they should, but I can understand it. And actually, what these other sort of more rural shows do is they make it more accessible for the local communities.
Yes.
And that's what I really loved. And there were some amazing nurseries there as well. Really great plants, men and women. Loved talking to them, loved talking to the public. So I opened that show, I did a talk there, a book signing. I'm doing a number of book signings at various locations as well. I think it's gonna be a busy year.
Yeah, which leads me nicely to mention the headline sponsor of the podcast, which is Shrewsbury Flower Show.
Oh, fantastic.
And I've just been telling you, haven't I? I'm persuading you to come along because
Yes.
I'm hosting the podcast live there this year for the first time.
Excellent.
The first time doing it live and the first time at Shrewsbury. So hopefully you can come and join me and meet some of the lovely people at
I
that
would
show.
love to do that.
I think it will be fantastic because it's August time, so it's hopefully the weather will be much better than this. Fingers crossed. And again, it's a lovely local show.
Brilliant.
So I think it'll be really great. To get
Oh,
our
I'd
teeth
definitely
sunk
be up for
into.
that.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think so.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll be there.
Thank you so much for joining me today, and let's go and have a look around. Hopefully, it's just starting to calm down a little bit. Now we've
Let's
finished
hope
recording.
that yellow dot comes out and then gets a bit warmer.
We need to dry off first.